John,
Sir?
what a day. We've eventually got there. Inauguration day.
Yes, thank God we crossed over the Rubicon.
Did you watch the whole thing? Did you watch any of it?
90% of it I watched, yeah.
Good. Good. Well, I did too. I got invited on Mark Z's little get together. There was four of us on there. So I
Nice.
spent an hour with Mark just watching it, and then Jeremy, one of the guys on there, and also another guy called Zesta, had some really good decodes of what's going on. So I've made some notes to share with the audience because still a lot of people out there will be absorbing it. And I have a hunch that some of these things that I've got written down are going to tie into some of the intel that you always have. So let's see. What do you think about that idea?
Shall we? Let's.
Very well. I've been watching carefully. I mean, obviously, you being in LA, and we got the fires going off everywhere. I know you said the smoke, the air quality was affecting you for a week or so, but how is it all died down now? There anything burning there at the moment?
Well, there's still things burning, but they've got most of it, I think, contained. It's hard to know exactly how much, but the winds are the issue. You know, the Santa Ana winds when they blow here, because whichever direction effectuates that, but also effectuates the air quality and all the particulates. So, for example, we had this last week, you had a string of good air quality days, and then yesterday it was pretty questionable, and now it's kind of moderate. So it's shifting. We're supposed to have rain, I think, this weekend, which will help a lot.
Yeah, should put everything out. That would be good.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Love it. It suits you.
I actually got two of these, but my friend ordered them and too big for him, gave it me because he said I didn't get to send them back to whatever online company, Amazon or something. So he says, do you want them? I was like, yeah, I'll take that. That might be handy. So I had it on all day. It's inauguration day. Did you watch any of it, John?
Sure did. Now? About 90% of it, yeah.
Good, good. Well, I was on with Mark Z, and there was four of us on. It was Mark, Zesta, and Jeremy, and we were all swapping notes about some of the what would you call it? Declassification of things in these plans, I suppose. There was a lot of little coding things going on there. So, John, I had an idea for today's show, if it's all right with you.
Please.
You probably guessed already. I wrote down some of these major points from his speeches. And a lot of these I was quite surprised about. Some of them we know about already, but some of them he dropped some proper bombshells, man. He wasn't pulling the punches today on that podium when he was giving his speech.
Oh, no.
So I think, for something like, for a bit of fun, why don't we go through some of his major points and see how it ties into any of the intel or some of the intel that you'd like to share? How about that for plan?
Sounds good to me.
I'm very happy we got there. You know, it was a bit of a nerve-wracking moment saying, is there somebody in the audience going to take a shot at him? Is he going to have something else happen? Are they going to come up and arrest him last minute because they've got another last-minute ploy? But we got him over the line, or he got himself over the line. It was a clever move going inside, I think. It wasn't so cold. It was, for me, -5. But for security-wise, it can control that room a lot better.
And it alleviates the issue of potentiality of drones as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was jam-packed in there. When they were marching down the Navy singers, they were bumping into shoulders with everybody. It was like, get out of the way, you goddamn Democrat.
I did see that. I noticed that.
Knocking over old ladies on the way down. So some of the things I think, I mean, drill, baby, drill. I like that very much because obviously when he got into power, Biden just killed the entire oil business in the States. He shut down the pipelines. A lot of people lost their livelihoods and jobs, and it shows in how the price of a gallon of gasoline is. So I think that's a very important point, that he's going to revitalize the entire petroleum industry and get it back to where it should be. And some of the things he was saying, like, we're going to have more than anybody else. We're going to start exporting it. We're bringing American energy back online. I think that's a really, really strong move. And how does it tie in? Anything there that sort of hits the nail on the head? I'm thinking about, because of the oil situation in Iraq and the Americans pulling out of there officially. Anything on that one that you think should be talked about?
Well, not so much the oil aspect, because I was just talking with Alistair McLeod about that overseas in the UK, and you know, some of the implications of precious metals and things. But since you brought up Iraq, I will share my screen with you. We did have a really good situation, David, happen with the CBI that I'm going to share with you right now, that I want to direct you and the audience's attention to, which is highly encouraging. And it also puts to rest some concerns people had about I get this question from time to time, and our buddy Nicholas asks me this almost every time I go on his podcast about what if they should arbitrarily decide to print new currency, what happens to the old one? Well, this article, as you're going to see, addresses that. And so this is according to Shafak News. Central Bank of Iraq revealed the security features of its new banknotes to raise awareness amongst the public, companies, and financial institutions. They underscored the sophistication of Iraq banknotes, describing them as the most advanced in terms of watermark security features. The notes are printed on premium paper to guarantee both quality and security. Here's the key line, David. The new banknotes will circulate alongside the existing ones with no plans to withdraw the older currency from circulation, they confirmed. So that's so they're doing it for like people who are blind, who need Braille and stuff like that. It's just an enhanced feature. But by no means are they getting rid of the currency people have been holding on to for quite some time, because the banks are involved and they're not going to want to mess around with that here in the exchange process when that comes ensuing. So that is a big, I think, collective sigh of relief for a lot of people who, had concerns about that. So wanted to share that with you. I'm going to show you this other one here. If it comes up, let me know when you can see Majid. You see this one?
Yeah,
here?
got it.
Okay.
It's there.
So this came over the weekend. So this means the rate is popping up. This is what he's saying. I'm just sharing. On Monday morning in the Middle East, after they pass all the laws on Sunday. Today, it's a holiday in the U.S., as you know, Martin Luther King Day, so that the U.S. can exchange the currency on Tuesday morning and pay off the debt to avoid destruction within the economy. Here you go with quote unquote Yellen, who's now out the door, thank God, if she was ever in it, talking about everything, up in arms. So what we also know is that the Iraqi government with Soudani has reached a deal with the Kurds to give them 16% of the oil share revenue credits, which was significant. We thought for a while it would be 17. Obviously, they negotiated down because the problem is the Kurds don't have a lot of leverage because they signed away their rights on a 3-year budget from 24 to 26, right? So that took away some of the staying power that they had previously. So, we could speculate of like maybe, they dropped 1% on the oil revenue so that maybe they get a better exchange rate or something. They probably worked it out in some kind of way, but it is pretty interesting to denote that. Let me share with you a new share and go to this one. Let me know when you can see this. Stellar Energy Executive Chairman Peter Gibson had an excellent meeting with Iraq's PM Soudani. We aim to build on strong growth relationship with the Prime Minister, supporting their need for electricity and energy independence. In layman's terms, they're getting ready for Iraq to come back on the international stage, and they're reinforcing the infrastructure that you would need in a major city. So pretty straightforward there. So that's the aspect I have as far as what's concerned with Iraq.
That ties in quite nicely, actually. That was a good one to pick. Some of the other ones, let me get rid of this. I've got this messaging going bananas because of what's going on,
They're popular.
The next thing that Trump was talking about, John, was reinstating a lot of the military that were laid off because they refused to take the jab and with full back pay. He also was pretty adamant about reinforcing and getting the military back up to the finest military in the world. So, but he also said he's not interested in invading any country, keeping us out of conflict. Although we're going to bring our military back to the glory days as it was when he was in there, he says he's not interested in wars. He wants to be, let me quote what he said, the peacekeeper. He wants to be known as the peacekeeper. So the military, if they're going to start building it back up again and putting proper people in charge instead of people that are confused whether, this is point 2 in this, he said, well, there's only going to be 2 genders now, which is a lot less confusing, which, I mean, sounds crazy, doesn't it? But how many was there last week? There was still about 47 last week. So there's only 2 genders. You can be a male or a female, and he's going to rebuild the military with rehiring all the guys that were laid off over the last 3 to 4 years because they wouldn't take the jab. So that's interesting. See what he's going to do with these military personnel. I was thinking something about China with that. Do you think that he still feels that there's a threat coming from China? What are your thoughts?
I think this is all a narrative, to be honest, David. They've had relations. He's had good relations with Xi on the Republic, not the CCP side, for a while, vis-a-vis BRICS. I think this is all just optics for the public, who is completely green as opposed to the people that follow us and ourselves. So, I think that's more for narrative points. Also, to your point, David, he talked about. I took some notes as well. He talked about Doge, and he mentioned the external revenue service. Did you catch that?
No, I didn't actually.
Yeah, he said that
Let's talk
early on
about
in
that.
his, well, that's the tariffs part, because he's removing with HR 24 and 25, he's removing property tax and the IRS, because as you know, through my efforts and many others, extricating myself out of the maritime law, ostensibly that he already did that in 2020 and made that available for us to do, who were able to do it. He was making a way to ultimately bake that into the new system, right, into his second term. So he's now got the majority of Congress and Senate on his side, so he should have no trouble passing that and removing property tax, removing income tax, as it was unconstitutional, and thereby doing a flat consumption tax or tariff. He also mentioned he said, the exact words were, we're returning the republic. He snuck that in, and I don't know how many people caught that. I'm sure many people in the audience did, but I'm talking about publicly. Big tell to me about what's happening.
Then he talked about Panama. No, it was quite like, we're taking it back. I'm like, hang on, what? So you just said above there, the military, we want to be the peacemakers. But he's talking about how the Chinese have been controlling the Panama Canal, overcharging American ships, including military vessels that are passing through, considering 36 or 38,000 Americans or people died building the canal. So I don't know how he intends to do that, although the president of, I think it's this year, the election, isn't it? Do you remember?
Say that one more time.
The president election of Panama, the new president.
I think it
I
is.
think that's coming up for election in this year.
I
So
believe so.
how are they going to achieve this impossible mission to peacefully take back control of the Panama Canal? Don't know how he's going to do that, but it was an interesting statement, because controlling the Panama Canal is something that's obviously a huge revenue maker, but also it gives people the power to make it or break it, as they say. And if you can't go through it because you're sailing on a vessel that's got the flag that currently the administration doesn't like in Panama, you've got to go all the way down to South America. It adds weeks and weeks on a journey and hundreds of thousands in fuel. So what are your thoughts on that Panama statement?
I mean, I think that's, he's going to, ultimately, I think that's all in the SAR as well. I think that's part of the deal with Xi. That's probably a negotiation they made long ago. He's got to cut off the trafficking rings and all the corruption, extortion that's been going on there, among other places, for quite some time. So I think it extenuates as part of a bigger equation. But one thing that just came up, David, on my feed right now is very interesting. Did you notice Melania, how she was dressed fastidiously today, and she was wearing a very specific hat? Did you notice that?
They've been saying it looks like from the film V.
Well, if you take a look, Princess Diana's on the right. So that was a calm back to Princess Diana and righting the wrongs. They're also having later on this year the World's Fair. That's the first time they're doing it since Kennedy in '63.
Really?
Yep, that's to show all the patents, med beds and the electricity coil for Tesla, which is free electricity, ultimately teleportation, and many other things will be prominently displayed at that fair. So it's kind of
where's that, in New York? Where are they holding it? Chicago? Where?
I'm told it's could be in two places, either Texas or Cape Canaveral, Florida was bantied about. So by that time, I'm definitely going to want to go and be there once I've moved. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Well, what you said, the thing you said about the child trafficking is, because if they introduce more stricter searches with them using technology of all vessels and containers going through there, I'm sure they can control a lot of the trafficking. So that could be one of the reasons why they're doing it, because he did mention specifically he's going to go after narcos under foreign gangs. He's treating the narco whole trade as a terrorist organization on the narcotics warlords, on the narcotic lords. So that was an interesting one. Greenland, he mentioned he's trying to do a deal to get that. I would imagine that's because of the minerals such as petroleum and gold. I mean, there's been gold found there as well. So
Oh
there's a
yeah.
lot of that. However, somebody brought up an interesting point is that if you control that part of the world, you would control the Baltic and the Arctic shipping lanes.
Mm-hmm.
So, which could be interesting because if they can somehow find, the passage, you're always looking for a passage to go across the top there so they can go down into China instead of going all the way around and across the Pacific. But Denmark officially is still in charge of Greenland. So if everybody wants to jump in on that, they're going to have to do quite a big negotiational trick because I don't think Denmark wants to give Greenland up, but the governor, the person in charge of Greenland, wants to because as far as I know, they have Danish passports. It's still a sovereign territory of Denmark. So I don't think the people of Greenland, the governor or the mayor, whoever it is, can make that decision. But funny he's been focused on that as well. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's an interesting point about what you said about the shipping ports, because as I was thinking about it, China has already sort of recapitulated, if you think about it, because they're working with Iraq, going back to them for a second, with respect to the Port of Fa, which has all to do with shipping, trade, and commerce. So maybe they kind of made this agreement, I'm sure they did years in advance, where they would give up Greenland's shipping ports to go through the Middle East and go about it that way, understanding that Iraq was going to be a superpower. They'd probably just I'm just speculating what I think it could be. I could be wrong, but it seems like on the backs of that supposition you made, they could have redirected their efforts to get shipping ports in a different way to, kind of go around it. Also, David, he talked about Liberation Day begins today, and of course, the ultimate refrain, the golden age, and drill, baby, drill, and liquid gold, which, has a double entendre for physical gold as well as oil. So,
yeah, I saw that. I've got that on my notes there. Then he talked about changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
Yeah.
What, I mean, was it ever called the Gulf of America? I didn't know this. Is this something that's real? I mean, he mentioned it. It sounds like he's pretty focused on it. So, which would mean if it's going to be having its name changed, he's got some plan for that entire coastline as well. The Gulf of Mexico. I mean, you've even got, it's quite a long coastline. It goes from right up through Florida down into Mexico. You've got Alabama down there and Louisiana as well, no? Is that all the Gulf of Mexico?
It's
quite a large area. And why would he want to change the name?
Well, so I've been thinking about that. For those who have been in this movement for some time and who have portions of our audience who are aficionados in the financial side, the late Benny Wilson, who I had a chance to interact with in 2020 prior to his death, God rest his soul. He talked a lot about over the years in his podcast, David, and I remember this, was talking about the Amero. So there was a widespread discussion that you were going to have Canada and Mexico conjoin with America to create the Amero dollar, basically, if you will, and emerge. So there was a map done. Somebody did a map cleverly about it, going back. I want to say, I'm probably wrong on the date, but it was sometime I think in the early 40s, where that's what the original map of North America was supposed to look like. I've also interviewed some people, a gentleman, Norm Traversy, who's a Canadian citizen over in Ottawa, who actually owns the gun rights to Canada. So if you want to get guns, you have to go through him, which is kind of crazy. He owns the patent on it. And he's been saying that his experience is the majority of Canadians are for this in terms of merging with America. So my point is, I think that this was part of a larger arrangement for quite some time to merge these three.
The funny you mentioned Canada. Snooping around on the one of the TV things that I came across that old movie, Canadian Bacon. John Candy, I used to like him. So it was shot in 1993, 94, 95, I think.
Yep.
So I put it on in the first 10 minutes, a bit slow, and then all of a sudden it starts dropping massive intel leaks. Like, okay, we're going to create a false flag. We're going to use the media to make everybody in America hate Canada. And it was so over the top. But now that you can see it with the eyes that we've been looking at things over the last 4 to 6 years, you can see that everything inside that film was actually based on events that they do is true. You know, make something up, do a false flag, go kill somebody important, blame it on the Americans, on the Canadians. So it was an interesting one. But it actually brings me, when you said about bringing those three countries together, here's the thing about the BRICS economy, because we've been very positive about BRICS in our conversations online, John.
Yep.
But now it creates a bit of a conundrum. I probably know where you're going to go with your answer here, but Trump's openly said, can you believe that all these BRICS nations are now trying to push out the petrodollar? We can't allow that to happen because it would be absolutely devastational to the American economy should they achieve the fact that nobody's going to buy any crude oil or ship anything in US dollars using as the basic currency to trade it all in. They want to use their own BRICS currencies. So it creates the problem. And I'll let you think what you think is the answer to that, because I know where you're going to go, but let's let the audience hear it.
Yeah, well, let's see how great our minds are interlocked as usual, David. Before I get into that, it's funny that you should ask the previous question about the Gulf of America from Mexico, because this just came out. Police have shut down the port of entry in El Paso as President Trump reinstates the Remain in Mexico policy. He's making moves already. So could that be somehow intertwined into the equation?
I mean, yeah, if he moves the border, if he pushes it back down, but his head of immigration has been very, very active on his thoughts, you know, and it's impressive that, you know, for once a president that says, as soon as I'm president, that's number one on the list. I'm securing the borders. And if he's already shut them all down already, I mean, and he's actually had these people on standby looking at the watch saying, okay, 12:20, where it's go time. I like that. I mean, that's going to show people, shit, man, this guy's serious, which you can see how serious he was. Speech, he was serious. He wasn't giggling and laughing or smiling. And it was also interesting watching how uncomfortable some of the previous administration were, especially when he said there's, you know, was shutting down the borders straight away. They were like, everybody was clapping and standing, and they're just like this, you know. Biden was reading a brochure from Shady Acres Retirement Center. That's where the helicopter.
If that was even the real people, right? If we're looking at the actors and stuff like that.
It's the same actors that they were a few months ago, but they haven't changed them out. But yeah, if they're actors.
Got to stick with what works for the public, yeah.
Yeah, all government censorship of free speech to be revoked.
Yep.
Back to giving people one of their greatest amendment rights, which is free speech. Love that. So that means that we can now not be censored about any of the information that we've been putting out, sharing our opinion, and not be worried about a SWAT team coming through your windows just because you said something.
Particularly as it relates to online with social media and such.
Yeah.
Now, go back to your original question so you don't feel left out or ignored or neglected.
Good.
With what Trump was saying about the dollar and the BRICS, it's not really the conundrum that you might think, because as you know, he speaks in duality, right? So when he's talking about, I'm going to place tariffs on them, and we talked about this before, it's reverse psychology, because he said, I'm not going to allow the dollar to be devalued or removed. Let's critically think that a bit, David. Which dollars are you talking about? Federal Reserve?
Well, yeah, this new dollar that they more or less, there's so much debt associated with the old corporation of America.
Right.
And now with this, he talked about this a lot, the Republic, restoring the Republic.
Exactly.
So the Republic of the United States, it seems to me that if they're going to change companies, it's like, okay, the other one's bankrupt, that's it, we're broke now, but we started something else. This is what companies do. So maybe he's going to join BRICS, or maybe he's going to force them into taking some sort of currency that would be called the new US dollar, something like that. It's a possibility.
Or he'll just set them free to get off the dollar hegemony and let them nationalize. Because like you were saying earlier about the oil revenues, Russia's already struck a deal with India for hundreds of millions of dollars to get crude oil from them directly. So they don't really need to be involved with us anymore, and that they could be, the idea is to help other countries be self-sufficient as we are, right? You still have relations with them, but you don't need to saddle the Federal Reserve cabal note on their backs, which keeps them from being able to be truly free and sovereign, right? I mean, that's all about
Right.
the level playing field, and the whole thesis of the reset is ultimately about, right? So if we're going to do some visuals, let me share with you something here. Just give me a second here as I get over to it. Let me know when you can see this, the Nelson Chamisa.
Yeah.
With
Stop the
respect to
nonsense.
Zimbabwe, now you're starting to see him talk again, right? He kind of is very sort of cryptic and sort of like a gopher, comes in, goes out, comes in, goes out. And he's back again saying, stop the nonsense. You want to extend pain and suffering, extreme deadening poverty, unemployment, hunger and lack, power outages, currency crisis, all that kind of stuff. Blah, 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 blah. You want to extend the capital brain drain? You can't. You stole the people's mandate, hopes and votes, and you wanted to extend the theft. You cannot extend it. It will not, it can't be extended. Stop it. So he's kind of, in my opinion, giving you comms of his return. And we all knew, sort of suspected that when President Trump is optically back in, that's the point at which the delta where you would see Chamisa re-enter, right? So
yeah,
the Zim bonds largely predicate upon that. And I also want to take the opportunity, David, to set the record straight on something. So when we talk about the reset, we're talking in terms of the public exchange. I think you know that, or it's also affectionately known as, we don't emphasize this a lot, but tier 5, right? We're not talking about the private sector. We're talking about the public. I want that to be clear, because there's been people who've watched our podcast and I guess have heard overspill that they're not sure what we're referring to. The reason I bring that up is because both myself and many other people in this movement who I respect have done their own diligence and research and talked to certain wealth managers and private bankers, right? Who have off the record said, without obviously disclosing their name for anonymity purposes, of course, that the Zim bonds will absolutely go publicly. They're going to be treated as a separate department, and they will go separate from the other currencies, obviously. The last we knew, it was a 7-year managed payout. I don't know, obviously, if that's still the case or it's being revamped. We'll know when we get there. But just to be very matter of fact and precise, people absolutely will be able to go and exchange the Zim bonds publicly once that time happens. But it is all predicated on Nelson Chamisa's return, and nobody knows exactly, except the people at the top, when that date is.
Yeah. 7-year payout makes more sense rather than just giving large sums of money to people that never had it before. So I like the sound of that.
Especially at the amounts we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of zeros and what we're talking about. Lots of zeros. He's going to attack the foreign gangs. He says we will not put up with foreign criminal gangs operating inside our borders, which is part of a lot of this resetting, because look how good Salvador's been doing with the incarceration of gang members. It's now become the safest country in Central or South America because of the president's reform on criminal gang activity and banging them all up, basically, throw them all in jail. So that was good. He was very negative about electric cars, but then at the end of it, he said, well, you've got if you want whatever car you want to buy, but reinvigorating the American automotive industry is a huge part, because they're going to need all that steel from somewhere. They're going to be buying lots of raw materials. So where they're going to get it, let's talk about silver. How much silver you need in the automotive industry these days, and where's that coming from? Where's the best country in the world for silver, John, you think, that's got untold?
Why don't you tell us, David?
Well, I would have thought Vietnam is one of them, but also Zimbabwe. Vietnam would be my favorite because it's Asia, and they have not even touched the top of the iceberg on that one yet, on their silver. So a lot of the things he talked about, like the oil industry, we know what that is. We talked about that. And now when he mentioned the electric car industry, not very enthusiastic about that. But it's saying if you want an electric car, off you go and buy it. But we saw what was happening out in California, also what was happening out in the Midwest, where these large ice and snowstorms were happening. Nobody could charge the cars, and nobody could charge them out in LA either.
Yeah, and to your point back a moment ago, David, Vietnam for silver. Exactly. And also Canada, going back to them. They have some of the largest reserves of silver, potash. It's one of the top 2 largest land masses in the world. So you've got more room to drill in there for oil. So it's good for the automotive industry. It's also good for the oil industry, which will, he's going to give the American public, he's going to start giving relief right now with prices at the pump, which will effectuate prices at the grocery store, because you have to consider the shipping aspect, right? I mean, it's all about shipping, and heavy usage of oil and diesel and such has an impact on the everyday consumer for consumable goods, whether it's Walmart or your grocery store, has a systemic effect. So it's a very much of a spiraling or a domino type of effect that occurs when you do this.
Yeah, and I think with all of these bullet points he talked about, it inspires new confidence in the government, because I watched a video of those. An American guy said he was in France and he was doing something in a local supermarket or a store, like a grocery store, and this guy came up and said, "Monsieur, are you American?" He says, "Yeah, yeah." And he said, the whole world is watching America at the moment, because for the last 4 years you have been totally crazy and embarrassing. So the world is watching with keen eyes. Two of the things I know that you would have noticed is how many times God was mentioned in these speeches.
Mm-hmm.
Do not forget God. We will not forget God. He had interesting, what would be the word? Not preachers, but men of God, men of faith.
Right.
The rabbi, you had a rabbi, a priest, and a preacher. Sounds like the start of a joke, doesn't it? Rabbi, priest, and a
Yeah,
preacher all walk into an inauguration.
exactly.
um, and the southern, I suppose he must be Baptist. The way he was talking was quite entertaining, because then the Catholic priest went on after that. I think, well, you got some show to follow now. The mountains of Colorado.
Right.
So it was very godly, which was nice. He was mentioned all over the place. I like that. And also, do you remember Biden's inauguration? None of the military people had any form of insignia, badges, rank, anything on them. Every single military person there was gleaming from head to toe with braids and medals and awards and where they were from and all of the insignia badges. So it was a huge difference. But I've got a very good question for you now.
Before you do that, David, did you notice
Yeah,
that he didn't put his hand on a Bible?
I did. Now, my interpretation of that is I had some intel shared with me about 3 days ago. He was sworn in early.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was just opposite optics, and it could well be a stand-in body double for Trump. That, so if it's not the real guy, it looked pretty much like him to me today. And there was two books. He had his own family Bible, which he always travels with, if I remember.
That's right.
But Pence's hand was on the Bible, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But Trump's wasn't. What's your theory on that?
Well, my theory or thought is, talking to our team, is he didn't have to, because he never left. He was
Yeah.
always the commander in chief, and the military, whoever they respond to, is the leader. So he never had to. This is all just for optics, because he's president and CEO of the corporation, restoring us to the constitutional republic. So there has to be an overlap.
Yeah, I get it. And what was the other thing? But there was also a very strange lack of any stars and striped flags, John. There was no flags or banners, or even with or without the gold tassels.
Well, that was removed, and one of the flags was wrinkled as well, which is
I
a
didn't
sign
see
of
the wrinkled
dishonor.
one, but there was. You'd think they would have um, put a few flags up. So that's obviously a coded message for something
Mm-hmm.
as well. That the
Transition.
United States corporation is now gone.
Yep,
This is the republic for what he's been restoring and bringing everybody back into.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You had a good question you were going to say?
Did you see Kennedy there? Was Bob Kennedy there? I didn't see him in the crowd anywhere.
If he was, I didn't pick it. I might have missed it, but I don't remember seeing him.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing him. And there was a lot of chatter going on about how many wives were missing.
Mm.
So
Big Mike.
Big Mike wasn't there. What happened to Big Mike? And there was a few others that were named at not being there. So all in all, it was I think it was a very interesting inauguration, because I thought his speech was great. You know, the great thing about Trump, mate, is when he talks, the average American can understand him because he's not talking in legal jibber jabber garbage that's just confusing. He's very straight and to the point. There's no confusing what message he's talking about. We're going to drill, baby, drill. You can't confuse it. So all in all, I think he's the first speech he's given of all of these policies. I've got them written down. He says, we're going to return to common sense. We're going to reinforce the southern border. We're going to stop all this foreign gangs infiltrating our land and taking over American cities. We're going to stop inflation with high costs of a gallon of gasoline and food that the average American family can't afford. We're going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to the auto industry. We're going to revamp the auto industry. We're going to introduce the Department of Government Efficiency. All government censorship and free speech is going to be abolished and free speech being reintroduced. We're going to restore law and orders back to our city so it's a safe place for our citizens to live in and not terrified of foreign gangs taking over their apartment buildings. Mm-hmm. There's officially now only 2 genders. We're going to reinstate military that were fired because of the experimental jab. And we want to be known as friends and not enemies. He says we're going to be focusing on defeating the enemies of the Republic of the United States, the USA. We want to be known as the peacemaker. And in fact, already he's released some hostages in Israel. He only mentioned 3, but there was a lot more released than that today. There was 3 released yesterday. There was more released today, women and children.
You know what that means, right, David? The hostages?
Tell me what well, I know what it means. I know it's...
There's double metaphor. Again, it takes the hand of Iran off of Iraq.
Yeah.
Big brother, we've talked about before, it frees them up. That Trump is going hard after Iraq to get this done. Because as we're sitting right now, David, I don't know if you saw this, there was going to be, I think, a table outside of the Capital One Arena whereby he was going to sign his 100 executive orders. We're told that 2 of them are specifically involving the reset, specifically for the dinar to get freed. And something I'd like to show you real quick, David, another segue, which is XRP. Let me just cue this. Let me get the sound that you've shown me how to do brilliantly in the past so that we all hear it.
The box. Yeah.
Serial quality, as it were. Let me just move this up. He's working on XRP. So you're hearing a lot about Bitcoin, right? But that's ultimately, if you look at The Simpsons had a comm that XRP was going to be over $100,000. So he's mirroring XRP to be the next Bitcoin. We expect here this week to see a significant jump in XRP, could be 5, 10, whatever. Once it hits double digits, that aligns perfectly with the dinar. It is tied to BRICS on the new blockchain, and it moves all of these currencies in fractions of a second. Now, look here on this video I'm going to show you. This is the CEO of Bank of America and what he has to say about XRP.
One you like is Ripple. You said it is the coin to be looking at right now.
Absolutely.
Why?
Okay, so Ripple actually was the 2nd largest coin prior to the SEC's investigation of them. They did this really weird lawsuit against them, and basically the Ripple's going to be the track that everything's going to be running on in the future. So they created their own stable coin right now.
Okay.
And Bank of America, like I said, they were doing 100% of their internal transactions. They've got 83 different patents on it, and there's some incredible stuff that's going to be coming out. So.
Another one you like is Ripple.
That's pretty impressive. Bank of America giving that the great thumbs up.
Pretty
so
good,
you think it's going to get to like $10 pretty soon?
We think it could be, hard to say, obviously, but what I'm watching on the different experts in XRP that we follow, like Molt Media is a good example. He's got his finger on the pulse. He's saying right now, I'll take a look. Let me go and look at my app here. It is, understanding it's a holiday and all that, it's at
317,
316, 317. It was 332 earlier. I wouldn't be surprised to see it do a $5 or $10 breakout this week. And the remainder of this month, it could easily threaten to do a lot more. And all we needed to do is be in the double digits, whether that's 10, 15, whatever, for Iraq to make their breakout. Because like I said, that's tied to XRP and their move into the BRICS, so they're all interconnected. So that was pretty significant that the banks are now accepting it in all possible forms.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of it. It makes sense to me. while they're doing it, and we have seen it's been jumping. I'm just looking at the graph here. It's been jumping. Let's see 1 month. In 1 month, it's jumped. What would that percentage be? I mean, it's hard to give it an actual percentage. There's a big jump there, and between the one day it jumped from, work out like that for me. But I know it's gone up significantly, and these things don't happen for a reason. The science behind it is solid and sound.
It's not random at all.
No, it's not random. And what else was on that list? We talked about the Gulf of Mexico. We talked about the Panama taking it back. Yeah. My favorite was, then he started talking about Mars, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought Musk had given up on. But clearly Trump's got something about Mars. I wonder, is that code for something?
Mm-hmm.
To liberate our nation. Very, very poignant. I mean, there's a massive intel drop, isn't it? Liberate our nation from the strangulation of the cabal and the darkness that's been strangling everybody between high cost of living and fuel, all these silly restrictions where we don't know what toilet to go into now in case there's some freak show circus act going on in there. But I'm glad all that's going to be doing. You know, how many people are going to be clapping now, taking down all of these non-binary people that identify themselves as mountain lions and need a bathroom in their own restaurant. And I'm happy that the speech was like that. And actually, John, it was very well received from both sides. Both Democrat and Republicans were applauding most of these. And I think the biggest round of applause was the two genders. If you notice, the people that got up there and applauded for that, which says it all, really, doesn't it? Whereas they're trying to make us swallow the pill that, okay, we can accept that there's more than two genders, but judging by the people that got up and applauded on both sides, I was like, wow, shows what the American, even these people in this room are thinking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's just people want an end to the insanity, no more banker wars, you know, that were being fought for the greed of the Rothschilds and the cabal there. That crap needs to end, and all the suffrage there that we're all very familiar. But I was also very excited to, you hear about Nayib Bukele, in El Salvador. That's a country I'm really keen on in terms of the BRICS, because they've discovered a month ago over in excess of 3 trillion in gold reserves. Pakistan, which just joined BRICS a little over a week ago, officially announced over 2.1 billion, in tangible reserves they can get at. So it extenuates for people the breadth and depth of the wealth transfer to be able to get into these currencies systematically. You don't have to go and binge them all at once. You can get your stockpile, of course, dinar and dong and zim, but then you can harvest up as these things move. Additional countries are now kind of, this reveal is coming forth with all these countries. So I was very excited to see that, what he's going to be doing. I think he's got a phone call today to set up a meeting with Putin, I think as early as this week, potentially. So he's already, moving. Like I said, there's no telling how many executive orders he's going to get a hand cramp from all the ones he's about to sign today.
How do you know it's 100? Has that been publicly released? 100?
He said it on last night's pre-inauguration dinner I was watching in a frenzy like everybody else. I caught him saying, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's inauguration, where afterwards I'm going to be signing in excess of 100 executive orders. He said it. So
impressive. I'd like to see the list of what they are. I guarantee there'll be a human trafficking one on there. And
sure.
If he really has locked down the border that quickly, I'll tell you what, that's impressive. It took 20 minutes.
Well, yeah. Again, this was a pre-coordinated effort for years. You have to know for sure, no matter how it went down, it was definitely premeditated and calculated over a long, protracted period of time. I would imagine, David, one of those executive orders has to do with RFK Jr. and the food. You see they removed the red dye number 3. Why didn't they remove it a long time ago? They knew how poisonous it was because of a cash grab. But he also has talked about the cleanest air and the cleanest water. A lot of people think when he talks that he's speaking in exaggerated hyperbole, but as a matter of fact, he's actually being quite literal. It just, because we've never heard this before from politricians. So, we don't expect to, ever hear it again or hear it legitimately out, in front and center. But in actuality, he's actually going to do those things. So I think we're going to see massive environmental changes as well.
Well, it would be great if we could end the chemtrails, number one, and he's already talked about removing the fluoride from the drinking water. So you just do those two things alone, get rid of the Gisanto genetically modified seeds and all of the crops being sprayed with poisonous toxins, which they say are better, but they make the plants grow better.
Right. And all my future state, Tennessee, and I believe Oklahoma have already enacted and enforced anti-DARPA and chemtrail laws so that they can't pull that crap anymore. So the states are all going to, he also said, David, I'm just thinking now, he also said he's going to hand a lot of he's getting rid of the useless DEI. He's going to remove the Department of Education. I'm just backfilling what you're sharing. And he's going to turn it back to the states. That's huge because that's restoring the republic. That's what it's all about. Each state makes its own individual decisions away from DC.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. And it's better that way as well, because you can read the population better, where they're lacking, where they're strong with that, what the kids are not getting. Because, the food that kids need in different states with different weather conditions is different. You're burning through a lot of calories in the wintertime trying to stay warm. You need to be eating the right food, not just Caesar salads and and mushrooms, or you need something hearty. Good bowl of hot bloody chicken soup for these people, John. Is there anything else we've missed on this show? I feel like we kind of got covered most of it. What else have you got in the
I don't know. I mean, I think we could go on and on, but I think we got pretty much the lion's share of it. It's an exciting time, and I'm looking forward. Every day now is going to be looking forward to seeing what unfolds here, because now we're on the other side of the Rubicon, or the Delta, if you like.
I absolutely agree with you, considering how long this hike has been uphill battle from getting censored and ridiculed and pointed at and conspiracy theorists. I mean, now he's over the line and home. It's going to be a much more interesting and enjoyable part of the next few years for us to see, watching him unfold. I mean, I'll be laughing when he starts doing all these things to people, especially in states that have just taken it way too far, like Colorado and California.
Yeah.
I just want to see being restored to the republic, where people can make the decisions. And on a final note, he's talking about restoring the American dream with 2 cars in the driveway. Mom doesn't have to work to pay the bills. Your front doors don't need to be locked and padlocked inside a caged room for fear of being shot, murdered, kidnapped. Where America becomes a place where the world envy and look to as a role model for not only the moral guidance and leadership, but also the lifestyle that everybody can achieve because of the way the country is run, where everybody has the right to pursue the life of liberty and happiness and freedom, where people look past the color of your skin and everybody has the same opportunities, instead of just being friends and families of extremely wealthy people that have been exploiting slave labor and heavy taxes throughout the hundreds of years of the country being there since the 1770, just before the revolution, I guess. And it's an exciting time to see if he pulls it off. I mean, if he's moving that quick, it's going to be great. And I'm excited to see the future, John. So I guess we'll talk in a couple of weeks, no?
Yeah. It's a great time to be alive. Remember, David, man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. And, to your point about 2 cars in the garage and all that, you're talking about a restoration of Jesus at the center, right, as the foundation. And then you have man back as the leader of the nuclear family again, where the government is not taking place of dad. And you can go back to one income, and, with Nassar Jassar and removing all the fraudulent debts, you have family time, you have restoration, you have communities come together. I mean, it just creates an influx of events and of sequential results that affect and benefit, society, the community, and the world at large. So it's just a win-win situation. Of
course.
And I think it's going to move quickly.
Yeah, I do hope so. Well, John, great chatting to you, buddy. I'll talk to you again in a few weeks. If there's anything else, we'll get back on and share.
Yep.
But in the meantime, enjoy your new freedom in that beautiful country you live in.
Thank you. And let's get it extenuated over to you guys as well. And as always, as you know, David, we've talked about the currencies. So if you have currency or you're looking to extend to the amount that you are trying to get, if you have a goal in mind or whatever it is with respect to dinar, dong, zim, rupiah, Venezuelan bolivar, and many others, we'll leave that link, as David knows, in the description. So always been a pleasure being with you, David. Thanks for the time, brother. Get some sleep. We'll talk soon.
Bye-bye. Thanks now.